The day Tyler sold my grandmother's guitar, something inside me died. The day I flatlined in that ambulance, something new was born. Now I'm standing backstage at a stadium I own, while he's out there collecting parking fees in the rain. Life has a way of bringing things full circle. I still remember the weight of that vintage 1963 Fender Stratocaster in my hands when my grandmother placed it there. The sunburst finish, worn smooth at the edges from decades of love. The way her arthritic fingers brushed the strings one last time. "This guitar got me through the hardest times of my life, Maya," she said, her voice thin but determined. "Now it'll get you through yours." She died 3 weeks later. I played that guitar every single day for 2 years straight. Until the day it disappeared. I knew before Tyler even opened his mouth. His eyes darted around our cramped Nashville apartment, refusing to meet mine. "Baby, I had to," he said, running his hands through that stupid, perfectly messed up hair that had made me fall for him in the first place. "The guys were gonna break my legs. I owed them $6,000. "You sold my grandmother's guitar to pay off a gambling debt?" My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was too calm, too hollow. "I'll get it back. I swear to God, Maya. This gig next week is gonna pay big and I'll track it down." I believed him. That was my first mistake. The tips jar at Melody's Cafe was half empty as I wiped down the counter for the third time. Tuesday afternoons were always slow. My manager, Darlene, shot me a sympathetic look. "You can head out early if you want, sweetheart. Not much happening today." I shook my head. I need the hours. What I didn't say, I needed every dollar I could get because Tyler had borrowed my rent money again. Because I was saving up for a new guitar. Because despite playing every open mic night and bar gig I could land, my music career was going exactly nowhere. Tyler, meanwhile, spent his days networking at songwriter showcases and his nights drinking with guys he swore were big in the industry. He hadn't held down a job in the 8 months we'd been living together. His own songs were derivative at best, painful at worst, but his confidence was staggering. "It's all about who you know in this town, babe," he'd say, kissing my forehead like I was some naive child. "I'm building our future." Our future. As if my talent was just a stepping stone for his ambitions. That night, I played a set at the Bluebird Cafe. A real set, not just an open mic. The owner had heard me playing one of my originals and offered me a Thursday night slot. My hands trembled as I set up, scanning the crowd for Tyler. He'd promised he'd be there. He wasn't, but someone else was. A woman in a crisp blazer who handed me her card after I finished my last song, Broken Strings. "I'm Alicia Winters from Songbird Management," she said. "You've got something special, Maya. Call me. We should talk about getting you some better gigs." My heart soared as I clutched the card. Finally, a break. I practically floated home, already rehearsing how I'd tell Tyler. Maybe now he'd see I wasn't just fooling around. Maybe now he'd take my music seriously. The apartment was dark when I got home. The first thing I noticed was the empty guitar stand in the corner. The Martin acoustic I'd bought 2 months ago after working double shifts for half a year. My Phoenix. Gone. Tyler stumbled in an hour later, reeking of whiskey and excitement. "Baby, you won't believe it," he slurred, grabbing my shoulders. "I got us a producer, a real one. He's gonna record my demo tomorrow." "Where's my guitar, Tyler?" His smile faltered for just a second. "I had to, Maya. This is my big break, our big break." "You sold my guitar? Again?" My voice cracked. "How could you?" "Don't be so selfish," he snapped, his charming facade crumbling. "This is the music business. Sometimes you gotta make sacrifices. Once I get signed, I'll buy you 10 guitars. "Where's the money from my guitar?" I demanded. He looked away. "I paid the producer up front. These guys don't work for free, Maya." Something inside me finally snapped. "Get out." "What?" "Get out. We're done. I can't do this anymore." His expression darkened. "You're making a big mistake. No one in this town will work with you if I tell them not to. You think you're so special. There are 1,000 girls like you in Nashville. You need me." "No," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I really don't." It took 3 hours, Lena's help, and the threat of calling the police to get Tyler out of my apartment. As the door closed behind him, I sank to the floor and sobbed until there was nothing left inside me. The next 6 months were a blur of exhaustion. I picked up extra shifts at the cafe, started waiting tables at a steakhouse at night, and gave guitar lessons on weekends. Music became something I barely had time for. Tyler made good on his threat. Suddenly, venues that had welcomed me before claimed to be booked solid. Musicians I'd jammed with stopped returning my calls. I heard he was telling people I'd stolen his songs, that I was unstable, that I was a nightmare to work with. Nashville started to feel suffocating, like there wasn't room for both of us, and he'd claimed all the oxygen. I scraped together enough for a cheap Yamaha guitar, but every time I played it, all I could think about was what I'd lost. My grandmother's Strat, my Martin, my confidence. Then came the call that changed everything, a last-minute cancellation at the basement. The owner had seen me play months ago and needed someone to fill a 40-minute slot. Tonight. "I know it's short notice," he said gruffly, "but my guy has the flu, and I remembered you had good original material. You available or not?" It was pouring rain as I rushed across town with my Yamaha in its soft case, already running late. The streetlights blurred into golden smears through the windshield of my ancient Honda. I was thinking about the set list, about whether anyone would show up, about whether Tyler might be there. I never saw the truck run the red light. They told me later that the impact spun my car 180 degrees, that the paramedics had to cut me out of the wreckage, that my heart stopped for 97 seconds in the ambulance. All I remember is the sound of metal crushing metal, the world turning sideways. And then, briefly, an overwhelming sense of peace. Until the pain dragged me back. I woke up in the hospital with a broken arm, 3 cracked ribs, and a clarity I'd never felt before. Nearly dying has a way of crystallizing what matters and what doesn't. "You're one lucky girl," the nurse said as she checked my vitals. Her name tag read Jade. "Someone's watching over you." I thought of my grandmother, and inexplicably I smiled. "My guitar?" I croaked. Jade's face fell. "It was in the car. I'm sorry, honey." Another loss, but somehow this time it felt different. Like the universe was telling me to start fresh, to rebuild from zero. During those long days of recovery, with nothing but a hospital TV and my thoughts, the songs started coming. Different from anything I'd written before. Raw, honest, unafraid. I hummed them quietly, committing the melodies to memory. I scribbled lyrics on the backs of hospital menus and discharge paperwork. There was no instrument to hide behind, no way to mask the vulnerability with clever chord progressions, just the naked truth of the words. Jade caught me one afternoon singing softly to myself while waiting for the doctor. "That's beautiful," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "Did you write that?" I nodded. "I knew you were a musician as soon as they brought you in," she said. "You kept asking about your guitar, even when you were barely conscious." We got to talking. Turned out Jade was a music lover with a small recording setup in her apartment. "Just a hobby," she insisted. "But if you ever want to lay down those songs somewhere better than a hospital room, let me know." The doctor came in with my discharge papers. "All set, Miss Rodriguez. Just take it easy for a few weeks. No heavy lifting. No guitar playing either with my arm in a cast." But for the first time in months, that didn't send me into a panic. Instead, I felt strangely patient. Like I finally had time to figure out who Maya Rodriguez was supposed to be. "You're not going back to those bars," Lena insisted as she helped me settle back into my apartment. "Those people don't deserve your music." Lena had been my rock through everything. She'd packed Tyler's remaining things in garbage bags and left them in the hallway. She'd covered my half of the rent when I was laid up. She'd believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. "I don't know what else to do," I admitted. "It's Nashville. That's how it works." "No," she said firmly. "That's how it worked before. But you've got a second chance now. Time to rewrite the rules." 2 weeks later, when the cast came off, I called Jade. We weren't friends exactly, but something about her calm confidence made me trust her. "Still want to record those songs?" I asked. "Thought you'd never ask," she replied. Her small setup turned out to be a surprisingly professional home studio. Her roommate was an audio engineering student who'd soundproofed their spare bedroom and filled it with equipment. I didn't want to get your hopes up, Jade explained, but Jamie here is actually pretty good. Jamie, a lanky kid with bright blue hair, grinned. And Jade's being modest. She's produced some tracks that got decent streaming numbers. I only had the cheap Yamaha that Lena had salvaged from my wrecked car, but it would have to do. We spent every evening for 2 weeks recording a 5-song EP. Just me, the guitar, and the truest lyrics I'd ever written. The title track was called Sold My Soul. It wasn't hard to figure out what or who it was about. You pawned my heart for pocket change, traded my dreams for a moment's high. Now I'm reclaiming what's mine. Everything you sold, I'm buying back starting with my soul. When we finished, I had no expectations. This wasn't about making it anymore. It was about exorcising the ghost of Tyler from my music, my heart, my future. What now? I asked as Jamie handed me a USB drive with the final mixes. Now we put it online, Jade said simply. Let the music find its people. I'd like to say that Sold My Soul went viral overnight, that I woke up to 1 million streams and record labels banging down my door. The truth is messier, slower, but somehow better. At first, just a few dozen people listened, then a few hundred. Jade had a modest following on social media from her production work and shared it relentlessly. Lena made everyone at her graphic design firm play it during lunch. Then a music blogger in Seattle wrote, "If you hear one new artist this month, make it Maya Rodriguez. Her Sold My Soul EP delivers the kind of raw, emotional authenticity that the overproduced pop landscape is starving for." 3 months after uploading my songs, I got an email from Resonance Records, a respected indie label with artists I actually listened to. They wanted to meet. "This isn't some Nashville good old boys club," Rachel, their AANDR rep, told me over coffee. "We heard your EP, and we think you're saying something that needs to be heard. We want to help you say it louder." "I need creative control," I said immediately, surprised by my own boldness. Rachel smiled. "That's exactly why we want you, Maya. You know who you are." Did I? Maybe for the first time I was starting to. The next year was a whirlwind. Resonance remastered and re-released the EP with proper distribution. They got me opening slots for their established artists. Small venues at first, then gradually larger ones as word spread. I assembled a backing band of session musicians who believed in the music. No Tyler types with their own agendas, just talented players who made my songs better. We rehearsed in a dingy storage unit until we could play the EP in our sleep. My first real tour was 15 cities in 3 weeks. East Coast clubs that held maybe 200 people. But they started filling up. Faces in the crowd mouthing my lyrics back to me. It was surreal. The most unexpected part? People connecting with the pain behind the songs. After shows, they'd wait to tell me their stories. About the partners who diminished them, the friends who betrayed them, the moments they reclaimed their power. "Your music helped me leave him," one woman in Boston told me, eyes shining. "I finally realized I deserve better." That night, I called Lena from my hotel room. "I think I'm actually helping people," I said, voice thick with emotion. "Of course you are," she replied. "That's what happens when you tell the truth." By the end of the tour, major labels were circling. My Instagram followers had jumped from a few hundred to 50,000. Music journalists were requesting interviews. And I kept waiting for the familiar anxiety to return. The desperate need for validation that had made me vulnerable to Tyler in the first place. Instead, I felt calm, centered, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Harmony Records eventually won the bidding war, not because they offered the most money, but because they promised I could keep my team from Resonance and maintain creative control. The contract was for 3 albums with a substantial advance. "Enough to buy back 100 guitars," Lena joked when I showed her the figure. I bought just one. A Martin like my Phoenix, but higher end. A Resurrection. Recording my first full album was nothing like those nights in Jade's apartment. We had a real studio now, a renowned producer, a budget. But the approach stayed the same. Truth first, flash second. We called the album Phoenix Rising. 10 songs about destruction and rebirth. About the night I died in that ambulance and the woman who emerged from the wreckage. About reclaiming what was taken. The label wanted to capitalize on the growing buzz, so they fast-tracked the release. 6 months after signing, my debut album dropped. It entered the Billboard chart at number 7. I stared at the screen when Rachel called to tell me, unable to process the words. "Turn on your TV," she said. "Channel 4. There I was, my face on the morning news in a segment about breakthrough artists. They played a clip from the music video for Flatline, the lead single. With her raw vocals and unflinching lyrics about betrayal and rebirth, Maya Rodriguez is being heralded as the voice of a generation tired of artifice. Surreal doesn't begin to cover it. The label immediately booked a late-night TV appearance. I'd never been more terrified than when I stood on that stage, millions of people watching. But when I started playing Sold My Soul, something clicked into place. This was why I survived. To tell this story, the performance went viral, streams jumped 500% overnight, and the questions started coming in every interview. Who broke your heart so spectacularly? Is Sold My Soul about a specific person? The betrayal in your songs feels so visceral. Can you tell us what happened? I never named Tyler. Some things weren't for public consumption. Instead, I told the guitar story. How someone I trusted had sold not one, but 2 of my instruments. How losing them had almost broken me. How nearly dying had saved me. It became my origin story. Maya before and Maya after. And somewhere along the way, I started believing it too. The headline in Rolling Stone read, "Maya Rodriguez sweeps Grammy New Artist categories, performs emotional tribute." The tribute was to my grandmother. I'd tracked down a replica of her 1963 Stratocaster and played it for my Grammy performance of Still Here, a song about carrying on someone's legacy. It became my signature, that sunburst Strat, bringing my story full circle. 2 years after my accident, I was filling venues that held thousands. My second album, No Apologies, debuted at number 1. The tour sold out in minutes. And I kept waiting to feel fulfilled, to feel like I'd finally proven Tyler wrong, to feel healed. But success, it turns out, doesn't fix the broken places. It just distracts you from them. I was in the back of a car being whisked from an arena in Dallas to the airport when Rachel called with the news about the world tour. 25 cities, 4 continents. We're talking stadiums, Maya. My stomach lurched. Stadiums? You've earned this. The label's going all in. She paused. One of the stops is Nashville, homecoming show at Cumberland Stadium. Cumberland Stadium, where I'd once stood in line for hours hoping to win tickets to see my idols play. Where I'd dreamed of performing someday in my most private fantasies. Is that okay? Rachel asked when I didn't respond. We can skip Nashville if it's too much. No, I said quickly. Nashville is perfect. What I didn't say, I needed to go back. To face the city that had broken me. To reclaim that piece of my story too. I hung up and typed Tyler Matthews Nashville into my phone's browser. I rarely allowed myself to look, but now I needed to know. His Instagram was sparse, no blue checkmark, no evidence of music success. His last post was from 8 months ago, a blurry photo of a hand-stamped ticket stub. The caption read, "Security gig at Cumberland pays the bills while I work on new material. Stay tuned." Security at Cumberland Stadium, where I was scheduled to play in 4 months. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. I called Lena. I need to do something crazy. Define crazy, she said cautiously. I want to buy Cumberland Stadium. Silence. Then, okay, that's actually crazy. Why? Because I can, I said simply. And I could. Between touring revenue, streaming royalties, and some savvy investments Lena's fiancé had helped me make, I had the resources. Not to mention a team of people who could make it happen discreetly through my production company. This isn't about him, is it? Lena asked softly. Tyler? No, I lied. It's about reclaiming something for myself. But we both knew better. Nashville looked exactly the same and completely different when my private jet touched down 4 months later. The skyline had a few new buildings. The air still had that sticky, sweet summer quality I remembered, but I was different. The scared girl who'd fled the city was gone. In her place was a woman whose face appeared on billboards advertising tonight's sold-out show. Car's waiting, Miss Rodriguez, my tour manager said as we deplaned. I need a detour first, I replied. He sighed, used to my spontaneity by now. Where to? Melody's Cafe. The tiny coffee shop where I'd once wiped tables for minimum wage was still there, wedged between a boutique and a record store. I asked the driver to wait and walked in alone, sunglasses on, heart pounding. Darlene was behind the counter, older but unmistakable. She glanced up, then did a double take. Maya Rodriguez? I smiled, emotion tightening my throat. Hey, Darlene. She rushed around the counter and enveloped me in a hug that smelled of coffee and the same drugstore perfume she'd always worn. Look at you, she exclaimed, holding me at arm's length. I tell everyone who comes in here that you used to work that very counter. Got the Rolling Stone with you on the cover, framed on the wall. Sure enough, there I was, staring intensely from behind my Strat, next to a signed photo I'd sent when my first album went platinum. I can't believe you kept this place exactly the same, I said, looking around at the mismatched tables, the chalkboard menu, the tip jar still half empty on a Tuesday afternoon. Why mess with perfection? She winked. You here for the trip down memory lane or you want a caramel latte? Still remember your order? Both, I laughed. And I want to buy everyone's coffee today, anonymously. She patted my hand. Fame hasn't changed you a bit. But it had, in ways I was still discovering. I sipped my latte and let the memories wash over me. The girl who'd stood behind that counter dreaming of exactly the life I now had. The endless rejections, the betrayals, the accident that had somehow set me free. He still comes in sometimes, Darlene said quietly, following my gaze to the table in the corner where Tyler used to sit and work on lyrics while I served customers. My stomach tightened. Tyler, she nodded. Not as much lately, but yeah, still acts like he's about to make it big any day now. She hesitated. He tells people he discovered you, that he was your manager before you changed. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me. Of course he did. You playing the stadium tonight? Darlene asked. I am. She squeezed my hand. He works there, some kind of security job. Parking lot, I think. I know, I said softly. Darlene studied my face. You gonna be okay? For the first time, I answered that question honestly. I'm going to be better than okay. Cumberland Stadium loomed massive and gleaming in the late afternoon sun. My stadium, technically, though only a handful of people knew that. I'd instructed my management to keep the purchase quiet. From the tinted window of my SUV, I watched streams of people already lining up outside. Fans wearing t-shirts with my lyrics. Girls with guitars slung over their shoulders, hoping for a glimpse of their idol. Once, that would have been me. We should head to the back entrance, my security head said. Avoid the crowds. No, I said suddenly. Drive past the main parking lot first. He frowned but instructed the driver to comply, and there he was. Tyler Matthews in a yellow reflective vest over a Cumberland Stadium polo, directing cars into spaces. Older, scruffier, but unmistakable. Time slowed as we drove past. He looked up, squinting at the black SUV with tinted windows. No idea who was inside. No idea that the woman he'd once convinced was nothing without him was now about to play to 50,000 people in a stadium she owned. I expected to feel something, vindication, anger, triumph. Instead, I felt a strange emptiness, like looking at a stranger. Keep driving, I told the driver. Backstage was controlled chaos. Crew members with headsets. Guitar techs tuning instruments. Makeup artists waiting to touch up my stage look. 30 minutes to showtime, Maya, my tour manager called. I nodded, retreating to my private dressing room. The replica of my grandmother's Strat waited on its stand, gleaming under the lights. I picked it up, feeling its familiar weight. A knock at the door. Package for you, Miss Rodriguez. I opened it to find a courier holding a long, narrow box. Someone asked me to deliver this personally, he said. Said it was important. I tipped him and closed the door, staring at the unmarked package. Cautiously, I opened it. Inside was a guitar case, old, battered, familiar. My hands trembled as I unlatched it. Impossible. The sunburst 1963 Fender Stratocaster inside was unmistakable. My grandmother's guitar, the one Tyler had sold years ago, the one I thought was gone forever. A note was tucked into the case. Maya, I've been following your story. When I heard about your grandmother's guitar in an interview, I realized I owned it. I bought it from a pawn shop in 2019, not knowing its significance. It belongs with you. No payment necessary. Your music has given me more than enough. A fan. Tears blurred my vision as I lifted the instrument. The worn spot on the neck. The tiny scratch near the pickup that I'd accidentally made when I was 16. It was really hers. Really mine. Another knock, more insistent this time. 10 minutes, Maya. I wiped my eyes and made a decision. I placed the replica carefully in its case and picked up my grandmother's guitar. Tonight, I would play the real thing. The roar of the crowd was deafening as I walked on stage. 50,000 people on their feet, screaming my name. The band launched into the opening riff of Sold My Soul, and I stepped up to the microphone. Hello, Nashville, I said, and the crowd erupted again. It's been a while. I strummed my grandmother's guitar, its tone exactly as I remembered. Warm, resonant, alive. Some of you might know I started right here in this city, playing open mics, serving coffee, dreaming of a night exactly like this one. I paused, letting the emotion of the moment wash over me. Nashville broke my heart, but it also made me who I am. As the set progressed, I felt something shifting inside me. Each song was a step away from the past. Each cheer from the crowd was an affirmation that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Mid-show, I told them the story. About my grandmother's guitar being sold. About my accident. About being reborn. Tonight, something magical happened, I said, holding up the Stratocaster. This guitar found its way back to me. The actual one my grandmother gave me. The one I thought was gone forever. The crowd went wild, understanding the significance. And it made me realize something. Sometimes the things we lose come back to us, and sometimes they don't. But either way, we keep playing. For the encore, I did something unplanned. Something not on the set list. I played a new song, one the band had never heard, one I'd written on the plane to Nashville. It was called Full Circle. And it wasn't about Tyler at all. It was about me. The stadium had emptied. The crew was breaking down the stage. And I was sitting alone in my dressing room when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Maya. Tyler's voice, instantly recognizable despite the years. They said you wanted to see me. I hadn't, actually. But my tour manager must have misinterpreted something I'd said earlier. I can come back another time, he continued when I didn't respond. No, it's fine, I heard myself say. Come up to dressing room 3. 5 minutes later, a knock. I opened the door to find Tyler standing there, still in his parking attendant uniform, looking both defiant and uncomfortable. Quite a show, he said, stepping inside. His eyes darted around the luxurious space. Always knew you had it in you. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Did you? Of course. He smiled that charming smile that had once made my heart race. Why do you think I pushed you so hard? You needed that edge. Is that what you call selling my guitars? Pushing me? His smile faltered. Ancient history. Look at you now. He gestured vaguely at the room, at me. Clearly, it all worked out. I studied him, this man who had once seemed so important, so powerful. Now he just looked small. It worked out in spite of you, Tyler, not because of you. His expression hardened. I made sacrifices too, my music career. Stop, I interrupted. I didn't ask to see you to rehash the past, or to gloat. Then why am I here? Good question. Why had I allowed this meeting? What was I hoping to gain? My eyes fell on the guitar cases in the corner. My grandmother's Strat, restored to me by the kindness of a stranger, and next to it, the replica I'd been using on tour. I have something for you, I said, crossing to the replica case. I opened it and lifted out the guitar. It was a beautiful instrument, nearly indistinguishable from the original. Tyler's eyes widened. Is that? No, I said firmly. The original came back to me tonight, a miracle I never expected. I held out the replica. This one is for you. He stared at it, confused. Why would you give me a guitar? Because I don't need it anymore. I placed it in his hands. I thought seeing you would make me feel something. Anger, vindication, closure. But the truth is, I moved on a long time ago. He ran his fingers over the sunburst finish, expression unreadable. You know I work in the parking lot of your sold-out stadium, right? Is this pity? I shook my head. No, it's freedom for both of us. I don't understand. You don't have to. I moved toward the door. Take care of that guitar, Tyler. Maybe it will help you find what you're looking for. Maya, he called as I reached the door. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about everything. I looked back at him and this ghost from my past. I know. And I realized that I did know, and more importantly, it no longer mattered. 1 year later, I stood on the stage of a small bar in East Nashville. No stadium, no light show, no backing band, just me and my grandmother's guitar. The place was packed, word having spread that Maya Rodriguez was doing a surprise intimate show. But this wasn't about publicity. This was about completion. This is where I played my first open mic in Nashville, I told the hushed crowd. I was terrified. Sure, I didn't belong. Tonight, I'm playing here because I finally know that I do. I played songs from my new album, Full Circle. Critics were calling it my most mature work yet. Gone were the songs about betrayal, replaced by explorations of growth, forgiveness, and yes, even love. The healthy kind I'd found with Jamie, Jade's former roommate, who'd joined my tour as an audio engineer and become so much more. After the show, I slipped out the back door. My car was waiting to take me to the airport, the European leg of the tour starting tomorrow. As we drove past Cumberland Stadium, I spotted a familiar figure in the employee parking lot. Tyler, getting into a beat-up sedan, guitar case in hand. He'd sent me a message a few months ago, a simple thank you. Said he'd started teaching guitar lessons to kids. Found it more fulfilling than chasing fame. I watched him disappear into the night, feeling nothing but a gentle sense of peace. Our paths had crossed, tangled, damaged each other. And now they had diverged for good. The stadium loomed in the rearview mirror as we drove away. I'd sold it 6 months ago, using the proceeds to start a foundation providing instruments and music education to underprivileged kids. I didn't need to own a stadium to know my worth anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Jamie. Safe travels, I love you. I smiled, typing back, love you too, coming home soon. And I was. Not to Nashville, not to the past, but to the future I'd built from the ashes of what was taken from me. To the woman I'd become when the old Maya flatlined in that ambulance. To the music that was always mine to make.